Welcome to the Mind of Business Success podcast. I'm your host, Alicia Cramer. Today we have with us an intimacy coach. We are going to get deep with Melisa Keenan. Welcome to the show, Melisa.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Okay, so now we have a group of business owners listening to this, and we're talking about intimacy. Now, this is an interesting subject because, and I'm going to say this as a coach who works with a lot of successful male entrepreneurs, as well as business women business owners. Some of my male clients over the years, and I know you work with both men and women, correct? Mm-hmm. It's not uncommon for marriage issues to come up when I'm working with my clients. And these very, very successful, driven entrepreneurs will oftentimes dive into work because they're passionate about it, they're driven, they're motivated, but it does take its toll on their relationships. So you work with successful business owners in this different capacity. We've had a lot of guests on who they're working as a business coach, as a performance coach, as a branding person, as a marketing person. Right. And all of those things are so incredibly important in business. And yet we're kind of neglecting that very vulnerable area of our life, which is a key component to our happiness and our success and our personal fulfillment. Well, so why don't we start by let's start by talking about this. Sure. Tell us what it is that you're doing with your clients, first of all, and then go ahead and just unravel all of this stuff.
Perfect. First I want to say I love that you brought up that marriage issues do come up when you're working with your clients. And you're working with clients just to build their business. That is the focus. And so often when I say to people, relationships and business are connected, or your marriage and your business are connected, or your intimacy and your business are connected, people are like, what are you talking about? We are not, even men, we are not compartmentalized beings. We cannot just take one identity off and put on another identity. Everything is whole. Everything affects everything. How we do anything is how we do everything. And so absolutely they affect each other. I also love how you brought up, sort of the lineup, the kinds of guests that you've had on your podcast, and those different tools that as a business owner we need in our toolbox. We need our branding expert, we need our web designer, we need our copywriter, we need our client fulfillment specialist, and all these different things. And I love the idea of looking at and our intimacy coach in that lineup, because we are missing that. We absolutely are. And I see more and more people right now. There's something changing in our global consciousness who are going, oh yeah, I need to be really feel good from the inside out in my business. It's not only about the tangible results. It's about what's going on inside, and that's relationships. That's everything to do with relationships. So I personally work with high-level business women. My husband works with the men, and we also work together with couples. It's so much fun. And so where I start with a woman, or where my husband would start with a man, is actually building the foundations to intimacy. So I say for a woman, she needs to really understand what true intimacy is and experience that with herself. Into me see is how I define intimacy. Into me see. That's understanding your feelings, your desires, your values, what really like motivates you to move forward in any given situation. She needs to reclaim her sensuality, which is everything to do with your body, totally not the box that we've put it in. We think of, I don't know, lingerie or something right away when we say sensuality. It's actually a whole body experience. And so it's really caring for, reclaiming your body as yours, reclaiming all of that. And then I help her to understand her divine feminine embodiment. This is stepping into feminine energy, yin or yang. You may have heard of it called that before. Yin is feminine energy, where my husband helps a man step into his divine masculine energy. And we do this because two reasons. The masculine feminine energy piece is so important because a woman who is living in masculine energy typically feels out of balance, and she's showing up in less than her fullest capacity in her business and work in the world and in her relationship. And also, the polarity in the relationship is what creates the greatest success. So we need one partner to show up in the feminine and one partner to show up in the masculine. And whether you're conscious of that or not, it's happening. So a lot of times I'll see really powerful businesswomen talk about their relationships, and they're super frustrated because they're like, my husband doesn't really do anything, or he does like all the back end stuff, but it doesn't really seem like he has a backbone. Like, I don't really know what he wants or what he stands for. And that's because she's showing up in the masculine. So her husband's just matching her energy in the feminine.
That's fascinating. I would imagine that a lot of people who haven't done any inner work in this capacity haven't even considered that dynamic taking place in their relationship. But now if they take a step back, they can start to see with more clarity, there are some imbalances. When you're working with these individuals, what are some of the common patterns that you're seeing? Are you noticing that the more successful a woman becomes, the more she takes on masculine energy, or are you seeing something different? I'm just curious what
it really depends. And I wouldn't say that like success is the indicative factor, because I meet a lot of successful businesswomen who've also done a lot of personal development work, which helps. Even if they've never heard of the framework of masculine feminine energy, having done any personal development work is so good and so helpful. But I actually see this as like kind of an epidemic for women all over, no matter what she's doing with her day to day, whether she's running business or whether she's even a stay-at-home mom, or because, and my theory on this is that we've swung the pendulum. Right. Like for most of us, if we go back in our ancestry, even 2 generations, for sure 3 generations, we find women who were super disempowered, who were oppressed, who were tolerating horrible things in many cases, in best case scenarios, like very less than ideal, disempowered circumstances. And so we have our day and age where, women's rights are strong, and we have, the strong feminist movement. We've swung the pendulum. And rather than going, oh, okay, we were over here in our disempowered feminine, and now we're going to find what true feminine is for us, we swing all the way over into like, we've got to compete with men. We have to be stronger than men. We have to do what they do and do it better. And it's fascinating because then it shows up in marriage. I mean, I can remember many times my husband learned that one of my favorite things for him to tell me was, you're so strong. Like, or to tell me like, wow, you were right. You did that better than me. Or like these different things that like, it was like survival for me. I had to really flip this thing upside down. And I've seen that, that pattern very consistently across, for women everywhere. And And then this affects our men too. So because, who was doing the oppressing 3 generations ago or whatever? It was men, right? It was the patriarchy. And so then again, we find ourselves in these marriages and we're looking at our husband, whether we're conscious of it or not, we're looking at them as the patriarchy. And it's like, in some subtle ways, it's like we're punishing them for stuff that they don't even know about. And so our men are very disempowered in this. I know for my husband, he was raised very like, make sure you show that you're a nice guy. Like above all, be a nice guy so that they know you're not a rapist, so that they know you're not trying to take advantage of women. So, whatever, those kinds of things. And so on this unconscious level, he's like, okay, I need to be the nice guy above all else. And then many of his other convictions would go on the back burner it's a survival, right? So it's very interesting how this plays out in our society.
I'm curious then, if someone is in the audience and they are thinking to themselves, well, I think that I'm fairly balanced in my feminine or my masculine, but there's definitely something off in my relationship. What's that about then? Is that other stuff that you're able to help them through, even if there maybe isn't a significant imbalance?
Yeah, for sure. And also typically when someone says that, they just don't realize it. So typically if you're thinking, oh yeah, I know a lot about that. I've already learned all about masculine and feminine and stuff. And, I've been, learning about that for years now. Actually, those are my favorite clients to work with, because typically what happens is we learn it here. Even right now, you're listening with your mind. You learn it in your mind. And then all of a sudden, everything has a judgment. Our mind is always working in binary. So it's like, okay, well, one is good, one is bad. All of a sudden, it actually creates more discomfort initially to have all this in your brain. For instance, as a woman, you might be thinking, oh, I'm just going to relax. I need to give myself more space, more time to relax. We know that that's like going to help your feminine energy, right? But then the minute you sit down, you're like, oh, I should be doing something. I can't just sit here. So we have this battle in our mind. So what I find is that we haven't really learned how to embody it. We haven't really learned how to take it into like ourselves and like live as this way of being, from our heart, from our gut, rather than from our head. And then to answer your question specifically, certainly there are other things. True intimacy is multi-layered. Sensuality absolutely plays a role in this, right? So a lot of times people will come to me simply because they're like, oh, my sex drive is really low and I don't even know why. Or my partner's sex drive is really low and they won't even talk to me about it. Like, we can't even have conversations about it. And so certainly, like, we go into that, and it's so magical, because again, people don't think sex and business are related, but I'm telling you, they are. And when someone feels disempowered in their body because of sex, it's showing up in their business. But when they do the work to get re-empowered, and I've even helped clients with erectile dysfunction, like legitimate medical issues, it doesn't mean you can't reclaim your sensuality and access those parts of your being. So we do that work, and how much that then impacts how they show up in the world.
There have been a lot of different teachings that I've been exposed to over the years. Some very esoteric teachings that will address sexual energy as an important component of manifestation and creation and goal achievement. So when you are talking about this interrelation, I mean, we can really look at it in a lot of different ways. At a very surface level, it just makes sense, right? If you're distracted because you're unhappy in your marriage, it is going to spill over into your business. That's a very, very basic, fundamental thing that nearly anyone could say, okay, that makes sense.
Right.
But now if we go into it in an even deeper, more metaphysical way, which again, I've got my master's degree in metaphysical science. Then we start to see it really runs deep. This really is a holistic creation experience. And whenever people start to, oftentimes because of trauma or unresolved hurts and things like that, when they start to repress aspects of themselves, things get out of balance. And it does influence all areas of our life, obviously some more than others. But when you're working with your clients and they're healing themselves, essentially, they're working through these parts of themselves that are out of balance, and they're getting themselves back in balance. In addition to how that improves their business, are you witnessing them really resolving other area of their lives as well, maybe relationships with other people, not even just employees, but children, or just even their level of self-confidence? What are some of the other spillover effects that you're seeing?
Yeah, for sure. An overall sense of confidence, I would say, is massive for both men and women, especially for the men. Especially for the men. Man, I've just seen some of the sweetest men with such good hearts, and they have this radar for their wife, and it's like, what does she need? What does she want? And it's like they're always gauging, how does she feel when I walk in the room? Like, is it going to be a good day or is it going to be a bad day? Right. And when they start to feel like, oh, this is easy again, like this relationship is exciting and fun, and I understand her, she's like understanding me, she's putting herself in my shoes, like all of that is happening. I mean, they are like, yeah, I'm the man. It's so fun. Recently, a client, they had been talking for 8 years about doing investment properties and flipping homes, and they just did it. Well, in this coaching container with us, he was like, he got this phrase, and I can't remember it now. I want to say he got it from another coach, but it just resonated with him, where he said, like, scared money isn't making me money. And it was like, the confidence, it's like, yes. And then for women, it's this overall sense of trust, which gives me chills, because we need it so much. There's so much fear in the world right now. And then fear as you're trying to run a business, is it going to work out? And then fear of what people are thinking or doing or saying. I mean, there's just so much to just fall into a sense of like relaxation, trust, ease, and ultimately like pleasure in every aspect of life. It's like, and that reminds me of another client. I had another client, she had this whole visceral experience in our coaching together, that like every time she got on the call, after our first couple calls, and she really started to get this foundation, she was like, oh my gosh, she said, like, I'm riding my bike and I feel like I can feel the energy of every person riding past me, on my way. And I have this connection with the barista at the coffee shop. And I have this like synergy with everyone and everything around me, like this connectedness, this aliveness. It's everything. Our intimacy is so powerful. And I don't think most people know what you were talking about the esoteric or the metaphysical aspects of this. But when you're in a great relationship and you have this this flow and this dance, I like to call it like the I picture a red flame and a blue flame. It's like our souls dancing with each other, and there's this ease and flow in a relationship. It literally is the breeding ground for manifesting whatever you want in your life. And where there's two, there's more power, obviously, right? It's like double the power. So I love, like, to me, that's the highest level. I don't always get to go to that place with my clients because we may be working here at the trauma, or we may be, just depends. But my favorite thing is when they come back and they're like, having these otherworldly experiences together because they're co-creating their lives in a whole new way.
That's awesome. I love that. So now I'm going to pivot, and I want to talk about you as the entrepreneur. So in this show, I always put my clients on the hot seat, and and I want you to be as vulnerable as you're willing to be. But in your journey as an entrepreneur, you've had to overcome your own mindset obstacles. Is there anything that you feel inspired to share about your own mindset journey, something that you had to overcome to get to where you are today?
Let me just sit in this for a minute and see what wants to come through. I love the question. I think I'll just share what's showing up right now, what's been very present right now. I see this year has been a year of quantum leaping for me in my business. I took my business to 6 figures. Literally a year and a half ago, I would have said that was impossible. I was running my business kind of from a hobby space for the first 2 years, not knowing it, but just literally not knowing about business. Like, it's been a year, 3 years of fire hose about how to be a business owner. And thankfully, I kind of like realized I have always been coaching, and I have always, had these gifts with intimacy and feminine energy and these kinds of, relationships my whole life. Thankfully, that part's easy for me. I love it. The business side is like sure fire hose. So what has come through for me more recently is this idea actually about pleasure. So I see everything through the lens of intimacy. It's just the way that I am, which is why I'm good at what I do. But I realized how many times I was lending my energy to things that were not in service of pleasure, things that were not in service of, like, when I am in my radiance and my goddess self, I'm in pleasure. That's it. Like, whether that's just the sensation of the air on my skin, or the connection that I have with clients, or or sexual pleasure, or all the kinds of pleasure, right? That is me and my truth. And I have to ask myself continually, and credit to this particular question goes to my coach. She's my money realizations coach, Susan Glusica. But the question is, am I available for this? Is my energy actually available for this right now? And I ask it moment by moment by moment. And as a result, I've had to make some hard choices, recognizing some like real energy sucks that I was permitting in my life, and needing to release those. including certain relationships in my life, needing to kind of make some different agreements, or if you want to call them boundaries. I don't like the word boundaries, but agreements with individuals and stuff, because I'm just always asking, what am I making my energy available to? And is there space for pleasure? Because pleasure is subtle. Like, it's not going to come in loud and proud with horns and lights like excitement. It's different, right? It's subtle. And it's like, if there's no space in me as a vessel for pleasure, then it's not going to come. So that's been my current practice. Because, I have a background of just a lot of trauma, childhood trauma, even trauma in my marriage, which was kind of the impetus to this whole idea of helping people in relationships. And so it's real easy for me to relate to my business as if I'm still not safe, as if I'm still in trauma. And this has been an anchor that's been really, really supportive.
I think we all could benefit from inviting more pleasure into our businesses as well as into our lives. So, Melisa, I want to give you an opportunity to share with our listeners how they can connect with you.
Yeah, absolutely. So my website, melisakeenan.com. And if you go there, you'll find a free intimacy guide that goes straight into some of these, helping you unlock some of these pieces for yourself. I also run a free community called Women Manifesting Intimacy on Facebook. And it's specifically for high-level business women who have recognized that intimacy is a priority in their lives. And so it's a space where we talk business and relationships all in one space. It's so magical. Where else do people do that? So Women Manifesting Intimacy, you can find me there. And I'd love to just make a additional offer to your listeners that I would love to do a call, a 15-minute call, just to touch in and hear what is happening for you in your relationships, so that we can help guide you to the answers that are already within yourself and those next steps. And I would love to do that. I much prefer to listen to people and help guide them to the answers already within them, rather than stand up here as an expert and give you some formula that may or may not work for you in your personal situation. So the best way to reach me for that, I'm going to give out my email address, which is support@melisakeenan.com, MELISAKEENAN.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Melisa, for sharing your wisdom and your energy and being so open and vulnerable, because that really is creating that safe space for people who are ready to be more intimate. So this has been fantastic. It's such a different conversation from many of the conversations that we've had on this show, and so incredibly valuable. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Alicia. I so appreciate this and so appreciate the work that you do in the world. So important.
Well, and I also want to thank our listeners. If you haven't already subscribed, make sure you do so. You don't want to miss any of this. And until next time, we will see you in the next episode.